Well, ladies and gentlemen, yesterday Donald Trump dropped a bomb on the H-1B immigrant visa system, announcing now the cost to employ an H-1B worker is set at $100,000. That's a small uptick from $215, and I believe with application fees, it's about $1,000 now. So you're going from $1,000 to 100K, a literal 100x increase in terms of the cost of H-1B workers in an effort to curb what the H-1B system has been used for and really abused in the last several decades. Originally, and you look up the definition of supposedly what an H-1B worker is, it is a high-skilled immigrant that has at least a bachelor's degree and is someone that is supposed to be a significant asset to an American company. And that is true. Normally, these workers are assets to American companies, not in the way the H-1B is spelled out or explained. More so, it's grunt work, it's low wages, and it's wage suppression for American citizens. That is the issue with the H-1B program. And it's not just because they'll put a cap on it of like 85K, but you see it a lot where they go above the cap and then their family comes with them. And so I've seen estimates to where this could wipe out half of the Indian immigrant population. And before I even get into this, this does surprise me at least a little bit, because if you remember back around Christmas of last year, you had Vivek Ramaswamy with his famous tweet, which really hurt his standing within the Republican Party. Vivek and Elon Musk were supposed to be the head of Doge, and it really pushed Vivek out, where he discussed the H-1Bs and why they're important and why the American culture, when it comes to raising children, is laissez-faire and they're too hands off, and we don't have a culture where we demand excellence from our children. And so a lot of people got angry at that. But if you look at Trump's reaction, he was balanced. He was in the middle. He didn't really side with the people that were criticizing the H-1B system. Well, fast forward 9 months, and he has destroyed the system. If this goes through, he's passing it with an executive order. We'll see what happens. Normally with a change like this, it potentially will have to go through Congress. But Trump saying they will be instituting a 100K fee for skilled worker visas. And along with this was the gold card program. But because of how crazy this hike up is, from around $215 plus around a $700 application fee to 100K, all anyone is talking about is the destruction of this H-1B program rather than the gold cards, which, what are those, $5 million, and you get direct, immediate citizenship within the United States for foreigners. And so we'll have to look at that as well. But this was announced yesterday on Friday. The federal government adding $100,000 a year per year fee for visas given to skilled foreign workers, a significant overhaul for how the United States distributes what are known as H-1B visas. He also signed an executive order creating an expedited visa program called Gold Card. The card would cost $1 million or $2 million if a corporation is sponsoring someone seeking it, according to the White House. The moves were the latest effort by the Trump administration in a wide-ranging crackdown on all forms of immigration. The H-1B fee is likely to face legal challenge, but if it survives, companies that hire skilled international workers would have to pay $100,000 each year for any employee working on the visa for up to 6 years. And the fee only applies for new applicants, according to a White House official. So there are a lot of people panicking that are right now in India that are on H-1Bs, worried if they don't come to the United States immediately, they'll be frozen out because of this potential massive overhaul. And this will significantly limit Indian immigration to the United States. I saw someone trying to argue, well, if it's capped at only 85,000 a year, isn't that only going to be like 1/10 of the total immigration from India? Well, no, because they bring their families. And also normally that 85,000 number, it's a soft cap. it normally, they always go over it every single year. So this will significantly limit the immigration. I would say it is surprising. I didn't expect this, but if you're talking about an employer paying 100K just to keep someone here as a worker, you really are cracking down on because the idea with H-1B, they say it's high skilled. Well, really the O-1, they say the O-1 is exceptional and the H-1B is high skill. The O-1 is still there, obviously, because it's very hard to get for people that are extremely gifted. But the H-1B has turned into like grunt coding work where companies will hire immigrants from India or from situations that are significantly worse than an American growing up in the States, and they will work and make 60 or 70K. There was a previous minimum that you had to pay H-1B workers. I believe it was 100K because it is supposed to be high skilled. But I know there were some things that got revealed back during that entire snafu right around Christmas about a lot of the H-1B workers getting paid $60,000, $75,000. And a lot of this is done because it is more attractive in a capitalist sense for an employer to hire someone that has a green card hanging over their head if they mess up once, rather than an entitled American that is just coming off college and is 23 years old. And that's why you're seeing so many of these. And this really affects the STEM fields significantly. That's why you're seeing so many Americans disgruntled. This is one of many reasons, but disgruntled because of the competition of foreigners. And then, of course, you've got the condescending argument, well, this is a meritocracy. Well, what do you mean a meritocracy? No, it's globalism. You're allowing anyone from anywhere who's in a worse position to come to the United States and take your job or to suppress your wages. That doesn't make any sense. And that's why someone like Bernie Sanders is also against this, even though he does call himself a democratic socialist. But he's against it because he wants to protect people in the United States. What a novel concept, protecting your own citizens. What even is an American? That's what they should ask next. Now, what is a woman? What is an American? Because if you ask a lot of these liberals, it's anyone, anywhere. If they come to the United States once, even if they're illegal, they should be an American. It's their right. Because of stolen land or something. Because it's all based off of history. Their entire arguments are based off of false historical premises to try and give themselves leeway. And of course, if you actually tell these people, well, no, your history is wrong based on how this country was founded and how it became the #1 global superpower. And by the way, that's another thing they say. Well, if you don't allow all these so-called high-skilled H-1B workers, China is going to pass you. What does that even mean? China's going to pass us. China has 4 times the population that we do. What do you mean they're going to pass us? In a per capita sense? It's not even a comparison. They're going to pass us. We have a $1 trillion military budget. At this point, the United States and Trump and Republicans in general, there is a prioritization when it comes to the culture in America. And so we are trying to limit immigration, and this is a way in which we can do it. And I think people are surprised, but pleasantly surprised, that Trump is going through with this. And I did not expect this because Trump is someone, I'm sure, and he's admitted it, he's abused the H-1B system. Bring in a foreigner and have a green card hanging over their head, they're going to work really hard. The entitled American, do they want to work for $15 an hour? And look, I know that's not what the system is for. It's for high skilled, and you're supposed to pay them at least 100K. But if you have to pay 100K a lot, because think about that. The previous fee for an employer having an employee that's an H-1B worker was $215. It's now 100K. And so maybe Silicon Valley and some of these other employers will try and get around this. They're going to have to tie up some loose ends, I'm sure, when it comes to the way in which they skirt this massive fee. But this is a big, big step up in terms of this H-1B system and the way in which it works and how many Indians come in through it. Many industries rely on H-1B visas to fill jobs, including technology and finance. Hospitals and universities also make ample use of them. And they're saying the new fee could substantially affect their ability to fill jobs, changing the nature of the country's workforce. Well, they probably will have to raise the wages at least a little bit to make it more attractable for Americans to work there. And that's just something that we're going to have to live with. We do want our country to be full of working Americans. It's like we bring in people, like in the sense, it's almost like you're bringing in people from other parts of the world to run your country. And that's not literally what's happening, but it is funny how they're like, well, all of these people that get imported to do this work are not, we're going to have to rely on Americans. Americans are going to have to do jobs in America. And so we understand the idea of cheaper labor and more control over the employee. It's very attractive for employers. And with the H-1B system, you kind of get the best of both worlds. And you've also got Amazon over. And I also think another thing that Amazon and many of these other corporations are going to do is there's going to be a switch to automated work, where hopefully a lot of this type of work that is previously done by immigrants will be switched over to robotics. And you could say, well, that's bad because it also affects Americans in terms of their ability to get jobs. But it will limit the immigration as well. There's a give and a take to something like that. Administration officials downplayed the concerns about the 100K fee, saying it would help American workers' wages by discouraging companies from using the visa to bring in lower wage international workers. And you can see this is what I was referencing. 85,000 new visas have been provided annually to hire so-called, they even said so-called, even New York Times, so-called high-skilled foreign workers at companies through the lottery process. And that's another thing Ramaswamy was saying. The lottery process doesn't make any sense. They wanted it to be more merit-based. Ramaswamy didn't want to limit the amount of visas. He wanted the lottery system to go away. And instead of it being what I believe now is a luck-based system, they would overhaul it and say, no, we want the best of the best. But again, that 85,000 numbers, you can bump it up significantly because you're talking about family, you're talking about them going over that number in pretty much every year from what I've seen. And that's why this could significantly limit the Indian migration to the United States and the wage suppression of these H-1Bs. And this should be something that it should be bipartisan. There's probably going to be support for this, at least a decent amount. There are some liberals, you see it, maybe even the ones that are an establishment further to the left that would support something like this for different reasons, like a Bernie Sanders that would support something to discourage this type, because this is a raw form of capitalism to extract foreign labor for cheaper, and then it drives down the wages of the American citizens. And so we will see what happens. But guys, I am surprised that Trump went this hard on the visas. And he also announced this gold card where it looks like the United States, because I thought it was 5 million, but now they're saying it's 1 to 2 million, depending on if the employer helps. And so I understand the idea of that. I mean, you're utilizing the attractiveness of the United States to make it easier for very wealthy people to come into the U.S. while also making money in a straight fee, depending on how much it's used. I can also see a big problem with this in terms of you're going to have, if you're paying $5 million or even $1 million for a visa or for, I guess, citizenship, then that's someone that probably is pretty wealthy, or I would assume is definitely pretty wealthy. And so their money and their influence is going to come into the United States. Well, they're a foreigner. And so there could be problems with that. But overall, I understand what Trump is trying to do in terms of it. And I'm very happy with this, of course. And we'll see how this affects. We'll see if this goes through. There's going to be legal challenges, I'm sure, with something like this, because this is a striking increase. $215, or if you want to include the application fees, $1,000 in fees by the employers, changing to 100K. You are making it so unattractive now to hire through this H-1B program if the employer has to pay a $100,000 fee every year the H-1B visa holder is working for their company. And so that's why people are like, wow, this is serious and this is destroying the H-1B program. And there will be an immediate, oh, there's not enough Americans to fill these jobs. They can't code. I mean, a lot of this is entry level stuff from what I've heard. And that's specifically why there is a more accelerated advanced visa, which is the O1 visa. Personally, I'm not a big fan of plucking the top talent from everywhere because, again, this is the issue with the United States at this point. We are kind of a wandering nation with no official culture, and we are changing significantly in terms of our demographics. And so it's like, well, from a competition standpoint, if we want to be number one, why don't we just all pluck the top talent from everywhere? We can do that because of how big our economy is and how attractive the United States is, how much money we have within our economy. All of these extremely smart people, whether it's from China, from India, because there are, the top quadrant, especially the East Asians, are extremely, extremely shrewd. The question is, why don't we just pluck all of them and then we'll have the best country ever? Well, we're not really a country then, are we? And so it's this balancing act, I guess, in terms of, but there already is a visa for that. If you want someone who's super advanced, super accelerated, it's called the O1. And I don't think the O1 changed at all. And that is for the top talent. And that's for people that really bring significant innovation into the United States and who want a better situation. Because you do understand in India, it is, if you're not, I mean, in India, there certainly are a few developed areas, but the vast majority of it is total poverty. People are living on top of each other. Because of the amount of vehicles and just sheer volume of people within New Delhi, they just have a ridiculous amount of smog. China deals with the same issue in their major cities, but it's all man-made. They do massive crop burns, and their air quality is so horrible in India. And those people, they're living on top of each other. The population density is just ridiculous. The overflow of people within some of those Indian cities is crazy, and that's why a lot of Indians are so sad that this is going into effect, because they want a place to escape to. But for the United States, this is our country. So there has to be a protection that goes up around it and says, well, this is how we want our country to be. And that's just the reality of it. And so Trump now is trying to fight. And also, it disenfranchises Americans. There's less job opportunities with these people coming in, and there is wage suppression. And also, what about the competition in terms of housing? They always talk about the housing. I see more liberals even than conservatives, which is crazy to me, talk about housing. Well, one of the major reasons this is happening is because of the mass immigration we've seen. The United States has taken in 40 million more immigrants than the second closest country within the last 50 years. I believe Germany is the second closest country. 40 million more immigrants than the second closest country. And that is a byproduct in part of capitalism. Many of these people coming in from worse situations, willing to work for less, which does in turn, in theory, keeps prices suppressed on goods. But this is not sustainable, and this will create a significantly worse quality of life for the vast majority of Americans. It already is. Just look at people growing up in 1950, 1960, the cost of a starter home versus the cost of it now. And I'm tired of the narrative that, well, these people are not taking your 1,800 square foot starter home. They're living in apartments. No, there's like 5 or 6 of them per home. There could be like 10 or 11. I've talked to people per home of Indian immigrants or other immigrants coming in. They all live together, and they'll live in a middle class 2,500 square foot home. So that's happening as well. But either way, guys, this is just the announcement, and we'll see how this shifts immigration, because it is impactful specifically to India in terms of the H-1B program. And I would imagine there are going to be companies that are very upset with this in terms of now their inability to take advantage of the H-1B program. And of course, there is going to be effects to this. People are going to talk about, well, if they have to pay higher wages to American citizens, we're going to notice higher prices, things of that nature, things like inflation. Well, this is an American policy. We want Americans working American jobs. Because these people, you can't even argue, well, they're citizens. Well, maybe they'll become citizens, but on the H-1B program, these are temporary visas. And maybe you'll get a green card after a certain amount of time if your corporation is impressed by you. That's why there's so much control by these corporations and why they love the green card, or why they love the H-1B system so much, rather than a snobby American citizen who grew up in the United States and is spoiled or something. So we have to compete with everyone for a job in the United States, for like an entry-level coding job. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you like the video down below. Also follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.